Here we are, born to be kings. We're the princes of the
Hey there nation, welcome to the show. We help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander CheapSkate, and now it's time for another edition of Warhammer the Golden Age. This is our series of Warhammer Fantasy Battle 8th Edition battle reports. This one is a 3,000 point battle that is fought between myself and my immortals of the Orcs and Goblins versus King Khalifa of the Schwarzwald Free Companies of the Empire. So that's why we're throwing it down 3,000 points. This time I'm using the Incarnate of Beasts Grungord Ironhide special character, so that way I get the Locus of Gur ability as well. We're going to play some background music real fast, go through the army list real quick, and we'll talk about exactly what we're bringing for this battle. So without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's get this battle report on the roll.
Assemble the army!
Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about deployment. As you can see, we're fighting on a 4x6 table. I am deployed on the near side of the board. My opponent, King Khalifa, is deployed on the far side of the table. As you can see, I'm Orcs and Goblins, so there really isn't much in terms of being fanciful in my deployment. I just line up my forces in a straight line right across the middle of the table because my army is a charging army, and my army's strategy is to get stuck in as quickly as possible and to cause as much pain as they possibly can. At the same time, my buddy King Khalifa, as you can see, he also deploys an army in pretty much the same kind of fashion as well. Most of his forces are concentrated within the center and right-hand deployment areas of his area, while he has his Panzerbaron all by itself on the left-hand side as well. My battle plan for this battle is pretty straightforward. I'm just going to send my goblins into the center, cause as much destruction as they possibly can with their fanatics, flank on both sides with my two huge horde bricks of orcs and black orcs, and then have my giant just cause destruction to the best way he can. Pretty straightforward, not really complicated all that much. Alright, so let's go and start with my left-hand flank. This is pretty much the most heavy part of my entire army. As you can see on the far left-hand side, I got Undead Fred and the Loon, that's my giant, as well as my huge horde of Black Orcs. These are my Immortals. They've been given the Immortal upgrade because Grungor Ironhide, he is directly in the center of there as well. He's got the Incarnate of Beast special abilities that gives him the ability to cast Locus of Gur. Basically, it's a balanced spell, power level 7. If he gets that spell off, every Orc and Goblin, as well as Ogre Kingdom's unit within 12 inches of him, get +1 to their strength, as well as +1 to their toughness. bonus. Grimgore, on the other hand, does not benefit from the ability, but having strength 5 black orcs with their great weapons and having armed to the teeth is just always fun. Same thing with having giants gaining +1 strength. And then goblins, toughness. There's nothing funnier than watching your opponent fight against strength 4, toughness 4 goblins. It's the best thing in the world to watch. So anyways, pretty straightforward. My guys are left-hand flank here. My goal here is to have these guys sweep to the left, take on the Panzer Baron, probably take on the forces on his left-hand side, and then just kind of sweep through his main battle line is what I'm pretty much going for with this deployment area. And make up the center line of my deployment, I have 3 units of goblins. I have 2 units of 20 goblins apiece, as well as my horde brick of 40 goblins in the center. All 3 units are armed with short bows. All 3 units have fanatics, full command, as well as netters, so that when they get engaged close combat, I can hopefully take off -1 to their strength. Pretty much these guys are just kind of like my suppressive element of my forces. I'm going to march these guys as quick as I possibly can, right down straight down the gullet of my opponent, have them deploy their fanatics and pop those guys, cause some hell to break loose across his front lines, and then shoot into pieces with my bow. It is worth mentioning that my huge horde unit right there in the center, they have the spider banner in there, so my battle center bear is located there on that unit as well. That's Hobgrob the Stinga. He's got the spider banner, so that way these guys cause poison attacks, gain poison attack abilities, which will also be cool too, because if I get off the spell Curse of the Spider God onto this unit, I get to get poison attacks on 5s up instead of just 6 up, which is always a good thing to have for a unit of goblins. So that pretty much makes up my center deployment. And finally, making up my right-hand deployment, I have my War Boys. That's my huge unit of 40 Orc Big Guns. Those guys have shields as well as hand-to-hand combat weapons. They also got the Banner of Discipline, giving them +1 to the leadership as well. In that unit, I also have Rugen of Stunning Flare. That's my level 4 Orc Great Shaman. He's got the Fencer's Blade. He's got the Talisman of Endurance as well as Chronic Command. So now this unit is up 1 leadership, and they're stubborn. So these guys are leadership 9 with stubborn special ability, which is always a good thing of having them kind of located here to kind of do the same thing as my Black Orcs, sweep to the right, and then try to attack from the flank. And then the very far right hand corner on top of that tower, I got my Kamikaze Boys. Those are my 2 Doomdiver catapults, and they really don't need much introduction. These guys cause D6 strength 5 hits with no armor saves if they get the chance to get to you. And these 2 catapults are the only thing I have an answer for against the Panzer Baron, which is my opponent's steam tank. So we kind of see how these guys work out here in the battle report here in a little bit. Alright, so let's go and talk about the deployment for the Empire for King Khalifa's deployment area. And his far left-hand flank, he's got the Panzer Baron all by itself. It is a steam tank. That thing does have a great cannon. It also rolls over anything that kind of gets in its way as well. So that thing can pretty much stand on its own. Very, very devastating. I really don't have a solution to dealing with that steam tank aside from my 2 Doomdiver catapults. So hopefully I'll be able to wheedle them down with some wounds from my Doomdiver catapults, if not outright destroy him. I also plan on sending up Undead Fred to kind of deal with him too, and hopefully he'll be able to take on that cannon, and I'm sorry, not that cannon, that steam tank, and just kind of destroy it in the first round. That's pretty much what I'm kind of planning for that steam tank. Meanwhile, here is the center deployment for his armies, where most of his army is located at. First of all, he's got his unit of archers, Rommel's Rangers. He's got 10 archers in front of his Great Swords unit. He's got 2 detachments of 5 archers for each of his flanking halberdier units as well. Right behind them, of course, on the left-hand side, you got the Red Company. That's a unit of 20 halberdiers with shields. In the center, you have the Yellow Company. That is a massive, huge horde brick of Imperial Guard. No, sorry, not Imperial Guard, but Empire Great Swords. Those guys also have heavy armor as well. They got the Battle Center Bear in there with Captain Hans Jaeger. Hans Jaeger? Yeah. No, Dieter Moons. I'm sorry, his name is Dieter Moons. He's the Griffin Guard. He's got the Griffin banner, so that because of that they get double up on the rank bonuses. The nice part is though, if I do have to break against that, they can't pursue, but his detachments can, which is always a bad thing. He's also got his level 4 caster in there as well. Same thing with his general, who is a arch lector as well. And of course, behind them, he has his Maximilian Max. That's his level 2 caster of metal. On the right-hand side, he's also got the Blue Company, which is another unit of 20 halberdiers with shields as well. So very hard nut to crack if I get those guys caught up in close combat. And finally, we have his right-hand flank. This is where most of his heavy stuff is located at. He's got his Hellblaster volley gun. That thing is called the Donner. Sorry, this is called Blitzen. Oh, I forgot to mention the photo on the left-hand side on his deployment. He also has Donner, which is his great can. I forgot to mention that. So there's Blitzen. That's his Hellblaster volley gun on the left-hand side of this photo. And the center there, he's got Captain Hans Jaeger Königswinter. That's his captain on Pegasus with the Sword of Might. On the right-hand side, he's got that huge unit of Inner Circle Knights. There are 20 of those knights, and they're led by a captain named Sir Tybalt Kraus. That guy's also packing the Count of Command as well, so that unit is now stubborn. Very, very devastating unit. The only thing I have going for me right now is that those guys are armed with lances and shields, so if I get to charge those guys first, they'll lose their strength bonus in the first round of combat. So that is the only thing I have to throw at those guys. That's the only thing I have to basically try to do is charge these guys before they charge me, because these guys on the charge, they're absolutely devastating. So with deployment out of the way, we go directly to the top of turn number 1 for the Empire, and as you can see, for the most part, he's kind of conservative for his movement. He does march up his archers, because those guys are skirmishers, they can march as well as also shoot, so he kind of creates a screen for them as well. He moves up his flanking units of halberdiers on both sides, as well as moves them up only 4 inches and have them occupy on either side of the forest. I'm thinking what his plan is kind of creating like this kind of mandible type formation, so if I do charge in forward towards the center lines, he can easily flank me, and at the same time I'll have to take dangerous terrain tests as I charge those forests, as well as be disrupted, because those forests kind of like throw off your rank bonuses and stuff, so maybe that's what he's kind of going for as well. I definitely know he's setting up his skirmishers to deal with my fanatics and hopefully pop those guys, but you know, that's what those guys are designed to do. On the left hand side, he moves up his Panzerbear, moves them up I think 10 or 11 inches, I believe, from the steam points they generated. Just has them kind of go straight for my giant, which kind of makes sense. Also on the right hand side as well, you really can't see it, but he march flew his captain on a Pegasus to the dead space on the other side of that tower in the right hand corner, so that way you can't really get to him or shoot at him, so he's kind of just waiting there waiting to charge for his next turn. And he also moves up his cavalry just a normal 8 inches, just so that way they can get ready to charge the next turn as well. He's close enough to where he can charge me, but far away enough where I won't be able to charge him really. The odds of me making that charge are very long, and so it's a pretty good plan where he has kind of laid out. Here's a close-up of the right-hand flank, so that way you can see Hans Zanger and Königswinter getting ready to charge directly into my Doom Diary catapults. I have no answer for that Pegasus Knight because he is out of my range of field of fire, so I can't take him out. So I'm starting to realize I may have made a tactical error by putting my Doom Diary catapults right on the top of that tower. I should have probably put those guys behind my center line, but c'est la vie, you learn what you learn. So anyways, moving on to the shooting phase, where as you can see, Undead Fred the Loon basically gets plastered off the battlefield. What ended up happening is my buddy King Khalifa took both his great cannon as well as his steam tank. He concentrated fire with both cannons onto Undead Fred. He managed to inflict 4 wounds with his steam cannon, as well as like 6 or I think he like 5 or 6 wounds with his great cannon. This basically just blew Undead Fred to pieces through cannon fire, which is really devastating because that guy's like 250 points. It was like, man, he didn't even survive 1 turn in this game. It was kind of sad to see him go, but you know, it is what it is, and that's the thing you have to face when you're facing cannons. King Khalifa then concentrates fires with his skirmishers, managed to kill 3 of my Ludas, so 3 Night Goblins are basically dead, but that's not such a big deal because there are plenty more Night Goblins where they came from. And oddly enough, the Hellblaster Valika and Donner Blitzen only managed to kill 3 of my big guns. A lot of his shots basically missed because he was so far away, and plus he was partially shooting through a forest as well. So because of that, only 3 of my orc big guns died, which I kind of count as being very good. So no complaints there as well. Magic phase for my opponent was I forgot to mention the magic phase is pretty much a wash for him. Everything he tried to cast, I just kind of dispelled at that point. So because there's no hand-to-hand combat, we skip that part. We go directly to the bottom of turn number 1 for the Orcs and Goblins. Alright, so this is the bottom of turn number 1 for Orcs and Goblins. This photo was taken directly after the move phase, and the very first thing I do is I declare charges, and the first thing I charge with is my War Boys. I decide, you know, it is an 11-inch charge. I might be able to make it if I get lucky enough, so I roll my d6 on that part, and I basically rolled like a 12, so these guys definitely made into contact with those knights, which is kind of a good thing because it's always a good thing to charge against cavalry instead of being charged by cavalry, so that kind of gives me initiative and kind of takes away his effectiveness in close combat as well because he loses his strength bonus as well. During the rest of the move phase, I just move up my goblins up about 4 inches forward, right to where that certain standing zone is. That puts me within 8 inches of his skirmishers, so because of that, my pops my fanatics. As you can see, my fanatics flew through the center there, took out a couple of his skirmishers in the process of doing that as well, and I also moved up my the Immortals as well, kind of having them tucked up behind them backstabbers, which is on the left hand side there, that standing stone, so that way they can get kind of out of the arc of that steam tank. My biggest fear is that my buddy will take his Panzer Baron and have him charge directly into my Immortals and then bog those guys down for a turn, which for a couple turns, which would be really devastating if he actually pulls that off. So I'm trying to get those guys kind of off to the side to kind of like get as far away from that steam tank as they possibly can. So that pretty much makes the move phase on this one. Here's a close-up of the backstabbers as fanatics going through that unit of 5 archers, that detaching unit. One of my fanatics killed 2 of those archers, and the other 2 are just kind of standing right in front of them, so that was kind of nice. And here's a close-up of the center fanatics being deployed by the Ludas. Managed to kill 4 of those archers from Rommel's range, which was kind of nice as well. Made those guys take a panic test, but because they're within the range of their general, they get inspiring presence, so those guys aren't going anywhere either. And finally, we have a picture of those sneaky gits kind of flying through that unit of 5 archers as well. Managed to kill 4 of those guys as well, which is also really cool. But like I said before, they managed to pass their panic test because they ain't going nowhere because they're within inspiring presence range of their general as well. So those are the fanatics. And lastly, here's a close-up of my war boys charging directly into that unit of Inner Circle Knights. I'm looking forward to beating these guys down to their baser elements because war boys are the bomb when it comes to close combat. So that pretty much makes it the move phase for this one. So move phase over, go directly to the magic phase, and I take my Shrieking Shroomhead, which is my level 2 Night Goblin caster. He casts Curse of the Spider God onto my the Sneaky Gets here on the right hand side. So now those guys also get poison attacks as well. They get 6 abnormal poison attacks. This is also kind of good because I also have my Spider Banner wielding Night Goblins on the right hand left of them, who also have poison attacks as well. Both of my units are armed with short bows, so it makes these guys have poison long range attacks, which is always a good thing to have. And finally, the very last spell magic to get off before the rest of my spells are dispelled, of course, was getting Headbutt off. I managed the magic, got really lucky on that one, maximized the wounds that I caused into his level 3/4 caster. I inflicted 3 wounds on the Victor Hill's Breath of the Wild, and so now his level 4 Lore of Life character is now dead. Which is kind of nice because it's kind of like a vengeance blow from taking out my giant, so it's like, yeah, fine. Take my giant, I take your wizard. Which is a good trade-off, I'll take it. During the shooting phase, I managed to wipe off what was left over of all those skirmishing units of archers with my shortboard wielding goblins. I had no problem taking those guys out. Just the volume of fire that my night goblins were putting out with their short bow ranges, which is absolutely epic looking as well. Just to give you an idea, basically we have 30 shots coming from my horde. We have 15 shots apiece coming from each of my 20-man units for a grand total of 60 shots total, which is enough to kill a bunch of skirmishers. So that part was kind of cool as well. Not to mention that also half of these units are using poison attacks as well, which is always a fun thing to do. And because my Doomdiver catapults are the freaking best things in the world, we managed to put 7 wounds onto the Panzerbearer as well, pretty much making that thing pretty much useless. Because of the Panzerbearer for the steam tank, he's got to roll on his misfire on the artillery dice, and he basically has to roll a 2. Otherwise, this thing's going to be causing all kinds of problems from every single one of his steam points that he generates. So I pretty much neutered that steam tank. It's not going to be much of a problem for me anymore, which is always a good thing to have as well. However, during the combat phase, I realized that charging my warboys into these knights is probably not the best thing ever. I only managed to kill 3 of those knights. They managed to kill 5 of my orcs as well. At the end, it ended up being a draw between the 2 of us. I just had the rank bonuses as well as the charge to help me out with my combat resolution. But I lose my strength bonus for my choppers in the first round of combat. So now I realize I'm going to be taking my strength 4 guys and try to take out the armor saves on these guys. It's not that their toughness is too hard for me to get through. I get through their toughness like no problem. The problem is their armor save. They have a 1-up armor save, which means that with my strength 4, they're rolling a 2-up for their saves, which, as everyone knows, trying to defeat a 2-up save is almost impossible to do. So yeah, things are not looking very good. And I just realized now that my war boys are going to be tar pitted by this unit of knights as well. So things are not looking very good on my right hand flank. Alright, so that takes the top of turn number 2 for the Empire. This is after the move phase. As you can see, not much movement actually ends up happening for him. The only thing that he really does, he charges in Hans Zanger as well as Königswinter, his Pegasus riding captain, into the tower where my 2 Doomdiver catapults are located at, so he engages one of my Kamikaze boys. So that part was pretty cool as well. He tries to move his steam tank, but unfortunately for him, when he generates his steam point, he does bust a gasket basically, so a valve locks up for him when he rolls up on the steam engine table, and what it does, it affects his ability to move, so he's not able to move at all. Plus when he tries to fire, because his cannon, he can't really rotate because he has no steam points, he won't be able to shoot his cannon either, which is also kind of sad for him. For the rest of his infantry units, as you can see, he pretty much just kind of backs up these units away from my fanatics, which is also kind of a smart move because these are fanatics and no one really wants to move with them, and everything else of course is either engaged in close combat or doesn't move at all. Here's a close-up of Hans Jaeger as well as Königswinter engaging my Doomdiver catapults, which will be kind of rough as well because those are the things I have for most of his armored units that he has in this army. So if those guys go away, my armor-piercing abilities basically go away as well, which is always a sad thing. During the shooting phase, he takes aim with his Panzerbearer to open up with the steam tank with his 1 remaining steam point that he has left. Unfortunately for him though, when he rolls to see how far the cannon bounces, how it ends up landing, he rolls a misfire on it. And basically, when he rolls it up, he loses 3 more wounds that he has. He already has 7 wounds to begin with. When he rolled his D3, he lost 3 more wounds on top of that, so the cannon pretty much causes the entire steam tank to blow up as well. So things are not looking very good for King Khalifa at this point. So that was kind of tragic. However, Donner had no problem kind of bouncing through these goblins without any ease. He went to go fire with his great cannon. Luckily for me, his shot, when it bounced from right in front of my unit of goblins, right behind them, and landed right in the space between my black orcs as well as my night goblins as well. So I do lose 4 night goblins for my troubles, but then again, these are night goblins. They're supposed to die, so I'm not really too worried about it. And because the misfires just don't quit for King Khalifa in this battle report, as you can see in that picture, he wants to go roll for his artillery dice to figure out how many shots he gets with the Hellblaster volley gun, and he rolls 3 misfires right off the bat. So the bad news is his machine's going to blow up, but the good news is though he gets 30 shots off that he aims directly at my Ludas, which is my unit of Night Goblins. So that part was kind of bad, but at the same time though, he also loses Hellblaster volley gun too. When it was all said and done, he managed to kill 16 of my looters like it was nobody's problem whatsoever. He killed half of my units of Night Goblins with just one fell swoop. Luckily for me, these guys did pass their panic test, and the only reason why these guys passed their panic test is for 2 reasons. One, they're within inspiring presence rate of Grimgor Ironhide, and secondly, they have a battle standard bear, and that's the only reason why they passed. I failed my first leadership test. They succeeded their secondary one, so because of that, these guys aren't going anywhere. But man, that was absolutely devastating. So a shooting phase over, we go directly to the combat phase. You can see in this picture, Hansjager as well as Konus Winter managed to put 3 wounds onto one of my Doomdiver catapults, killed 3 of them crew members as well. So I got 1 crew member left over, so it's engaged in close combat, but it does buy me enough time for my second Doomdiver catapult to cause some havoc later on down the line, which is kind of a good thing. So I get 1 more shot with this guy before he gets killed. Meanwhile, in the combat phase, my opponent takes his captain, Tybalt Kraus, and he actually issues out a challenge order to kind of bog me down, which kind of makes sense because so long as you're engaged in a challenge, nobody other can really fight for the most part. So because of that, my shaman, Ruga the Stunty Flare, he answers the call. He has 2 attacks because he's got the Fencer's Blade, so his leadership weapon skill 10, so that will make him very, very deadly that way as well. He's also got a higher strength as well as a higher toughness than Tybalt Kraus. Plus, in successful rounds later on, I did get Fists of Gorkov, so because of that, I can cast that onto my shaman, give him +3 strength as well as +3 attacks if I can get that off in the magic phase. So I answer the call. Luckily for the both of us, nothing really happened. I was unable to wound him because of his high armor score. He did inflict 1 wound on me, but my ward save from my Talisman of Endurance kind of blocked it from happening. So all these guys really do is just kind of stare at each other for right now. Alright, so that takes the top of turn number 2 for the Orcs and Goblins. This picture is taken directly after the move phase. You can see not much movement really takes on from my side either. I pretty much keep everybody where they're located at as well. The only thing I really do is kind of shift my Black Orcs a little bit more over to the right hand side as well, and that's pretty much it for the most part. Basically, the main move that really took place is my Fanatics. As you can see, most of my Fanatics died because they ran into the forest right there in the center of the board. So because of that, because they're force destruction rules, if they run into the forest, they get killed. A lot of my guys also rolled doubles as well, which represents the fact that these Fanatics also killed themselves as well. However, 2 of my Fanatics actually went through both those units of Halberdiers and killed some guys in the process of doing that, which is pretty cool. But like I said before, I'm not really moving much of anything, and the reason why is because I have 2 Fanatics still left right in the middle. Just a word of warning for you guys who play Orcs and Goblins. Fanatics are great because they cause a lot of destruction, but never put them in the middle. I realized that the hard way, because if they bog down the middle movement, you're not getting anything across that table, and that's just a really bad thing. Here's a close of one of my Fanatics going through the blue company and killing 5 of those guys off the bat, so that was pretty cool. And here's a close of my other Fanatic going through the red company and killing 3 Halberdiers as well, which is always a good thing to have to happen. So that pretty much makes the move phase for this one. During the magic phase, I decided to say YOLO and decide to 6 dice Curse of the Bad Moon using my little goblin shaman to basically do it. As you can see in this picture, I had just enough to make that spell go off at 25 without rolling a miscast. It was like the most bizarre, absolute crazy thing you ever saw. That's the reason why I took a photo of the dice, because you wouldn't believe me otherwise if I told you I didn't miscast on that part. But that was absolutely fantastic. So I do get the big Curse of the Bad Moon off as well, and I also get the large template. So I start setting that up for the for my magic phase. As you can see in that photo, I set up the large template on the very far right hand side of his main line. My goal is to have that thing fly across the entirety of his center line. As you can see, I rolled up a 21 on that part with my 46, so that thing will go across his entire main line and just eat up everything at the same time. I decided to make my opponent take a toughness test because I get to choose which characteristic they test on, because these guys are humans, only toughness 3, so a lot of these guys should die. With that being said, I'm going to put on some background music real quick and show this thing flying through, causing all the destruction that it caused. And to make matters worse, after all those guys got killed by the Curse of the Mad Moon, we get to the shooting phase as well. As you can see, I kill a handful more members of the Yellow Company using my Doom Diver Catapult. I managed to kill 6 of those guys, so those guys are now dead as well. And my archers managed to finish off the Blue Company entirely and managed to kill another 5 members of the Red Company as well. The only reason why none of these guys fled is because they have really good leadership, so no one ran away, but at the same time, it was like, man, absolutely devastating. Exactly what happened. I mean, I've only played that song which is called Envy. It's called Heaven Road 2 by Envy. The reason why I play that song is because the last time I played that was like 2 years ago when my opponent, Lady Donna, used a big casting of, what's it called? Arenzapal's Black Horde to sweep through my huge army of Empire soldiers back when I was doing the Tertio campaign. I had like 100 halberdiers and like 2 units of 40 handgunners. That thing just ate through my entire army and killed everybody with the Arenzapal's Black Horde. So this is what this kind of reminded me of with the Curse of the Black Moon. So yeah, it was pretty bad. So with the shooting phase over, we go directly to the combat phase, and once again ended up being a complete draw between both my Great Shaman as well as my opponent's Captain Tybalt Kraus. They didn't do anything to each other, so once again, these guys are locked into a stalemate. And Captain Houndsjaeger as well as Koenigswigger had no problem wiping out my last Doom Diver Catapult. They overran directly into my second Doom Diver Catapult, so now those guys will be engaged in close combat here in a little bit as well, which will be pretty rough. So, oh well, I managed at least cause some damage to my Doom Diver Catapults anyways. Alright, so that takes us to the top of turn number 3 for the Empire. As you can see, there's not much really Imperial forces really left all that much. So because of that, my buddy King Cleaver decided to do a quick combat reform with his Imperial Guard and puts him to a column formation with his great swords because he knows he doesn't have enough guys to have a really effective horde break anymore as well, and pretty much keeps his troops there to locate at. Everything else pretty much stays the same. Captain Houndsjaeger and Koenigswigger are engaged in close combat, so he doesn't really do much movement either. As you can see on the left-hand side, you can see the large circle template there on the left-hand side next to that standing stone. That is where the vortex landed last, and so the next turn during the magic phase will randomly determine where we'll go next and how much damage it will cause as well. During the magic phase, my opponent King Cleaver rolled a 5 for his magical dice, and he decided to take all 5 of his dice and dispel the Curse of the Bad Moon as well. So you can see that he rolled double 6s during his dispel attempt in order to cast it off. Just out of curiosity, I decided to roll 3d6 to see exactly what would happen when I moved into random, as well as you roll a scatter die to see where it would have gone if he hadn't done that. As you can see, what would have happened is that thing would have gone right back the way it came, 9 inches, if he hadn't got a chance to dispel it, which would have been absolutely terrifying to watch as that thing flew through what was left of his main lines trying to kill everything else again. So good thing he decided to dispel it with his main power dice instead of just letting it roll off someplace, because that could have been very, very bad for him had that spell just kept on going the way it was going. And finally, in the combat phase, after we finally get to fight out my shaman, finally put the last 2 wounds onto Sir Tybalt Kraus and managed to kill his captain at the same time, which is also pretty epic as well. And the counterattack that took place afterwards, nothing much really happened besides that. I think he managed to kill one of my orcs, and I think I failed to kill any of his other guys as well. So pretty much, we're both still stuck at a standstill for the most part as well, so no one really goes anywhere either. And of course, Houndsjaeger as well as Koenigswigger had no problem killing off my very last Doom Diver Catapult, so that thing explodes, and now he's just standing there triumphantly killing my 2 catapults. Okay, so that takes the bottom of turn number 3. This picture is taken after the move phase for both the Orcs and Goblins. As you can see, for the most part, I decided to march up my Goblins. I realized that if I'm just hoping to shoot these guys to pieces, it's not going to do much of anything. I really got to get closer and try to connect with these guys and engage them in close combat, because my forces are pretty much largely not doing anything. So what I decided to do is I march up all my Goblins, you can see, heading up the center lines as well. I'm sorry, not my Goblin units, I'm sorry. I take the backstabbers on the left-hand side as well as the looters. I don't march them, I move them up only 4 inches, that's right. So that way they get closer, that way they can shoot my opponent as well. I do march my sneaky gits, those sneaky gits on the right hand side, those yellow Cat Knight Goblins. I march them around the force, so that puts them in a nice little charging position from the charge into the flank of the Inner Circle Knights in case of that opportunity manages to happen, so that way I can disrupt those guys and get those caught up in close combat. And on the left hand side, I take my Immortals and I shuffle them over to the right hand side, so that way they're within range of 24 inches of my caster, because I'm planning on using Hand of Gork to pick those guys up and to teleport them across the battlefield if I'm able to. So that pretty much makes my move phase on this one. So with movement done, we go directly to the magic phase. As you can see, I had a very powerful magic phase. Managed to get 2 spells off. First of all, I got Hand of Gork off onto my unit of Black Orcs. I cast the big version of that. Luckily, I didn't get any miscasts on that part, so that was kind of nice. So because I was able to teleport my Black Orcs all the way from those forests to the right-hand flank of those great swords, that way they can get within charging distance the next turn. Managed to get that off as well. I also managed to get off the Locus of Gur off for Grimgor Irehide in the magic phase as well, so I give him +1 toughness as well as strength to to the Immortals. He doesn't actually benefit from it because he's a special character, but everything within 12 inches does. My Ludas, as well as those Sneaky Gits, as well as my War Boys, who are just in the very tail end of the 12 inches, they all got +1 toughness as well as +1 strength as well. So now my War Boys are now toughness 5, strength 5 fighters going against the Inner Circle Knights, so hopefully that'll be enough to push it over the edge and cause enough subtraction to their armor saves that can actually cause some problems. Plus now my Goblins are strength 4 and toughness 4, which is an awesome thing to happen when it comes to Goblins as well. During the shooting phase, I concentrate fire with my archers from both my backstabbers, managed to kill off the last remaining members of the Red Company. For the most part, my shots from my looters was pretty much useless. I think I maybe killed one guy, I think is what I ended up doing the shooting phase, so that's all pretty much that happened at this side of the table. But the thing that really made the biggest difference was close combat between my War Boys as well as the Vagrant Brotherhood. I managed to kill 4 members of the Vagrant Brotherhood as well, so 4 of those Inner Circle Knights are done as well. They also in return managed to kill 2 of my Orc Boys in exchange. So it ended up being, I think I won by 2 or 3 points when it came to the combat resolution points. Now because these guys lost their stubborn ability when their commander died, these guys are just normal leadership 8 on that part. So because of that, they got tested on leadership 5. Unfortunately for them, they did fail their break test, so because of that, they were forced to flee. On their 3d6, they managed to roll up an 8. I rolled my 2d6. I managed to roll a 10. So because of that, the Vagrant Brotherhood breaks. I run those guys down. I also chop them down to the last man. So you can see in this photo, I ran those knights down, managed to chop those guys to pieces. My War Boys, they just shot just shy of that autumnal woods there on the right-hand corner of the battlefield. And so just like that, the stalemate on my right-hand flank is finally broken, and that pretty much frees up the rest of my army to cause some havoc later on down the line. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that takes directly to end the game. My opponent, King Khalifa, he only has like a unit of 20 great swords left, as well as his Pegasus captain on Pegasus. So you realize he doesn't really have much left to kind of throw left at me. I have a huge horde of Black Orcs I haven't gotten the chance to use yet, as well as most of my War Boys. He just kind of concedes the game at this point and just surrenders. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that takes us to the after action report, because this battle report is now officially over.
Sure, I could have stayed in the past. Could have even been king. But in my own way, I am king. Hail to the king.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, now it's time for the After Action Report. This is the part of the battle report we talk about what went well, what went poorly, and what we can learn for the next time that we do battle. This is the After Action Report for Warhammer the Golden Age, battle report number 34, and it being a victory for yours truly. So let's go ahead and talk about the losses real fast. For my army, I lost 2 things. I lost Undead Fred and the Loon, my giant, as well as the Kamikaze Boys, which were my 2 Doom Diver catapults. My buddy King Khalifa, however, he lost the Panzer Baron, the Blue Company, the Red Company, Donner Blitzen, Sir Tybalt Cross, the Vagrant Knight, the Vagrant Brotherhood, Maximilian Max, as well as Victor Hellsbrand of the Wilds. And the only reason why I won this battle is for one simple reason: stupid dumb luck. That was the only thing that basically helped me win this battle at all. A couple of things really helped out and helped me win this battle report. First of all, King Khalifa losing his steam tank, as well as his Hellblaster volley gun in the same turn, pretty much kept my army from being bogged down by that steam tank, also being shot to pieces with artillery as well, so that really kept me from being destroyed that way. I also got really lucky killing his level 4 caster, which allowed me to dominate the magic phase as well, so because his level 4 was dead, I could pretty much dominate his level 2 in terms of getting spells off, which really helped me off as well. Case in point, Curse of the Bad Moon, which was a raging killer this game, took out half of his infantry forces when it flew across his main lines as well, so that was also really good. Some negatives that took place: first of all, charging my War Boys into the Inner Circle Knights was a bad idea. My War Boys, even with the Big Guns upgrade, were not strong enough to get through those guys as well. Their +1 strength for their choppers only lasts for the very first round of combat, and I did not inflict enough wounds in order to get through that, so that part was kind of sad. Also, another bad thing was that my forces were too spread out. I'm realizing now that having my entire forces spread out a giant line like that is pretty much a bad way of doing things. My forces weren't really concentrated enough to be effective, and just to give you an example of that, my Orcs, because they were so far off the removed, my Black Orcs pretty much did nothing for the battle report. They just kind of walked around is all they really did. My Goblins actually did more than my Black Orcs did, which is actually kind of a bad thing. I think one of the reasons why that was the case is because I had my Goblins occupy my center lines. Next time I'll put them on the flanks, so that way they're not really getting my units bogged down in close combat too much. Like I said before, Stupid dumb luck really won me this battle because, as you can tell in this battle report, I passed all my animosity tests. Not a single one of my units that has animosity actually failed it. So it just kind of shows you how powerful an Orc and Goblin can be if they do well, if they don't have to worry about animosity, because animosity has popped up in the past before, and it's always been a big issue. As always, this was a fun game. I love playing against my buddy King Khalifa. He's an excellent opponent. I'm looking forward to the next one as well. As always, you guys, check us out on Facebook, Google+, as well as Instagram for all the latest and greatest of what our updates are for our hobbies. And as always, please feel free to comment, like, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is always appreciated. That's going to do it for this one, you guys. We will see you guys in the next one. You guys stay classy. Peace out.